Marcus Chen walked through the gleaming corridors of the Imperial recruitment, stationed on Kepler 442b. The alien architecture towered above him, all smooth curves and crystalline surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. He kept his expression neutral, though inside he marveled at how different everything looked compared to the muddy trenches and bombed-out buildings he was used to. The Zephyrian officer who had processed his application earlier that day had been polite but clearly skeptical. Commander Vextel stood nearly 8 feet tall, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the station's ambient lighting. His large golden eyes had studied Marcus with the kind of look reserved for something mildly interesting but ultimately insignificant. "Human," Vextel had said in his translator-modulated voice. "Your species is new to the Galactic Empire. We appreciate your willingness to serve, but perhaps you would be better suited for supply duties or maintenance work." Marcus had simply smiled and handed over his application. "I'd like to apply for sniper training, sir." The commander's facial tendrils had twitched in what Marcus learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of suppressed laughter. "Sniper training? Human, our current snipers can hit targets from 15 kilometers away. They have enhanced vision that can see across multiple light spectrums. Their reaction times are measured in microseconds." "I understand, sir. I'd still like to try." Now, 3 days later, Marcus found himself in the training facility alongside 24 other recruits from various species. There was Crixtol, a mantis-like dex warrior whose compound eyes could track multiple targets simultaneously. Next to him stood Gorneth, a bear-sized Bruggen whose thick hide could absorb small arms fire and whose enhanced nervous system gave him superhuman reflexes. The training instructor, Sergeant Major Yathara, was a female Zephyrian with scars across her scales that spoke of actual combat experience. She looked over the assembled recruits with obvious disappointment when her gaze fell on Marcus. "Today we begin with basic marksmanship," she announced. "You will engage targets at standard range, 2 kilometers. Acceptable accuracy is 80% hits within the center ring." The other recruits moved to their assigned positions with confidence. Crixtol's head rotated almost completely around as he surveyed the range. Gorneth picked up his rifle like it was a toy, the massive weapon looking small in his enormous hands. Marcus took his position and examined the rifle they had given him. It was clearly designed for larger hands than his, and the energy pack was nearly as heavy as some of the weapons he had used back home. The scope was advanced beyond anything Earth had produced, with readouts showing wind speed, atmospheric density, and gravitational variance. "Begin firing," Yathara commanded. The range erupted with the sound of energy weapons. Colored beams lanced out toward the distant targets, most finding their marks. Marcus took a moment longer to adjust his grip and sight picture. He had always been deliberate in his approach. Much to the frustration of his old instructors, his first shot hit the outer ring of the target. Several of the alien recruits glanced his way with expressions that seemed to say they had expected as much. His second shot hit closer to center. By his fifth shot, he was consistently hitting the center ring. "Adequate," Sergeant Major Yathara said as she reviewed the results on her datapad. "Though I notice you are considerably slower than the other recruits, I prefer to make my shots count, Sergeant Major. In combat, hesitation equals death, human. Your species may be adequate for some military roles, but precision shooting requires capabilities your kind simply does not possess." Marcus nodded respectfully. "May I ask what those capabilities are, Sergeant Major?" "Enhanced visual acuity, for one. Reaction speeds that allow engagement of moving targets. The ability to make rapid calculations for environmental factors." She gestured toward Crixtol. "Crixtol can process visual information 60 times faster than a human. Gorneth's nervous system operates at speeds that would be impossible for your species." "I understand, Sergeant Major." Over the following weeks, the training intensified. They moved to longer ranges, more complex environmental conditions, and moving targets. Marcus continued to perform adequately but unremarkably. He hit his targets, followed orders, and kept his mouth shut when the other recruits made jokes about the slow human. It was during the fourth week that Marcus first attracted real attention. The exercise was a simulation of urban combat, with targets appearing at random intervals across a mock cityscape. The recruits had to identify hostile targets among civilians and engage them while avoiding friendly forces. Marcus had positioned himself in an abandoned building overlooking the main plaza. Through his scope, he watched as the other snipers took positions on rooftops and in windows. The simulation began, and immediately targets began appearing throughout the complex. Crystal engaged first, his multiple eyes allowing him to track several targets simultaneously. His shots were fast and accurate. Gornath's massive rifle thundered as he took down targets at medium range with devastating efficiency. The other recruits performed well, their enhanced abilities allowing them to dominate the simulation. Marcus waited. He watched the pattern of the simulation, noted the timing intervals, and identified a position where multiple high-value targets would eventually converge. When the moment came, he fired a single shot. The energy beam passed through his intended target and continued on to strike two additional targets that had been positioned behind the first. In the span of one trigger pull, Marcus had eliminated 3 hostile targets with a single shot. "Impossible?" Gornath muttered over the comm system. Sergeant Major Yathara's voice cut across the channel. "Human, report to my position immediately." Marcus made his way to where the instructor waited at the simulation control center. Her golden eyes studied him with new interest. "That shot you just made, through 3 targets with perfect alignment. How did you calculate the positioning?" "I watched the pattern, Sergeant Major. I noticed the targets moved in predictable intervals. I waited until the alignment was correct. The computer indicates that shot required calculations involving 17 different variables. Wind resistance alone would have thrown off the trajectory by several centimeters. How did you compensate?" Marcus hesitated for a moment. "Experience, Sergeant Major." Yathara's facial tendrils moved in what he now recognized as deep thought. "Human, your file indicates you have no formal military training. Your planet has only recently achieved spaceflight. Where exactly did you gain this experience?" Marcus looked directly into her golden eyes. "Earth has not been a peaceful place, Sergeant Major." That evening, Marcus sat alone in the recreation area, cleaning his rifle with practiced movements. The other recruits had learned to give him space after his performance in the simulation. He could hear them talking in low voices at the far end of the room. Occasionally glancing in his direction, Commander Vexthal entered the recreation area and approached Marcus's table. The large Zephyrion settled into a chair that groaned under his weight. "Marcus Chun," he said, pronouncing the human name carefully. "I have been reviewing your training records. Your performance has been ... interesting." "Thank you, sir." "I did not say it was good, human. I said it was interesting." Vexthal leaned forward. "You score adequately on all standard measures, yet you demonstrate capabilities that should be impossible for your species. How do you explain this?" Marcus continued cleaning his rifle without looking up. "I do my best, sir. Your best included a shot today that our computer systems classified as impossible. The trajectory required compensation for factors that even our enhanced species struggle to calculate quickly. Maybe I got lucky." "Sir." Vexthal's tendrils writhed in what Marcus had learned was frustration. "Luck does not explain consistency. You have made 17 shots in training that our systems flagged as improbable or impossible. Each time, when questioned, you provide vague answers about experience or intuition." Marcus finally looked up from his rifle. "What would you like me to say, sir?" "The truth would be refreshing." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. "Sir, Earth is a world that has known war for its entire recorded history. My species has spent thousands of years finding better ways to kill each other. We have fought wars with sticks and stones, with bows and arrows, with rifles and cannons, and with nuclear weapons. Every generation has refined the art of warfare. And?" Vexthal prompted, "and some of us got very good at it." The commander's golden eyes narrowed. "Your file says you worked in construction before joining the Imperial military." "Yes, sir, construction." Marcus's voice carried no emotion. "I helped tear down old buildings. Vexthel sat back in his chair, studying the human with new intensity. I think we need to have a longer conversation, Marcus Chun. Tomorrow, after training, report to my office. Yes, sir. As the commander left, Marcus returned to cleaning his rifle. Across the room, the other recruits had gone silent. They had heard enough of the conversation to know that something was different about the quiet human. Crystal's compound eyes reflected the room's lighting as he watched Marcus work. Later that night, Marcus lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling. The other recruits had long since fallen asleep, but sleep had never come easily to him. Too many memories, too many faces of... Commander Vexthel's office was a study in imperial efficiency. The walls displayed tactical information from across the sector, while holographic star charts rotated slowly above his desk. Marcus entered precisely on time, his posture military straight despite never having mentioned formal training. Sit, Vexthel commanded. Gesturing to a chair that had been adjusted for human proportions, Marcus took the seat and waited. He had learned long ago that the person asking questions usually revealed more than the person answering them. I spent considerable time yesterday reviewing your homeworld's history, Vexthel began. Earth's military records make for disturbing reading. Your species has engaged in constant warfare for over 5,000 years of recorded history. Yes. Sir, the scale of some of these conflicts? Vexthel's tendrils moved slowly, a sign of deep thought. Your second global war involved over 100 million casualties. A single conflict with more deaths than most planets see in their entire recorded history. Marcus remained silent. But what truly concerns me are the conflicts not in your official histories. Our intelligence suggests Earth has experienced numerous undocumented wars in recent decades. Shadow conflicts involving advanced technology and casualties that were carefully concealed from your civilian population. I wouldn't know about that, sir. Like I said, I worked construction. Vexthel activated a holographic display above his desk. Images of Earth appeared, focusing on several locations that looked like construction sites. These satellite images show the aftermath of what your government called industrial accidents. And natural disasters, our analysts see something else entirely. The images shifted, showing crater patterns and debris fields that clearly indicated weapons impacts. This crater in the Sahara Desert was officially listed as a meteor strike. However, the blast pattern is inconsistent with space debris. It matches the signature of a directed energy weapon with yield equivalent to 50 nuclear warheads. Marcus studied the images without reaction. Interesting theory, sir. The construction company you worked for, Chun Demolition Services, appears in our records as having cleared debris from 17 of these sites over the past decade. Vexthel leaned forward. That seems like an unusual coincidence. My family has always been in demolition work, sir. We go where the work is. The commander's golden eyes narrowed. Marcus, I am going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. What kind of construction work were you doing on Earth? Marcus met his gaze steadily. The kind that required security clearances, sir. For the first time since the conversation began, Vexthel's composure slipped slightly. Security clearances for construction work? Some buildings are more sensitive than others, sir. Some require specialized techniques to bring down safely. And some of these buildings, were they occupied during demolition? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You would have to be more specific about which project you're asking about, sir. Vexthel turned off the holographic display. I think I understand now why you have been reluctant to discuss your background. However, this conversation has raised new concerns. If you possess the kind of experience I suspect, you may be overqualified for standard sniper training. I'm happy to continue with the current program, sir. That may not be an option. I am recommending you for immediate advancement to the Special Operations Assessment course. If you perform as I expect, you will be assigned to missions requiring specialized demolition skills. Marcus nodded. When do I start, sir? Tomorrow. Pack your gear. You're being transferred to the Nexus facility. The journey to Nexus took 3 days aboard a military transport. Marcus spent the time observing his new companions, a mix of species selected for advanced training. Unlike the basic training recruits, these soldiers carried themselves with the confidence of veterans. Single quotes VAR was a Noxian infiltration specialist whose natural chameleon abilities made her nearly invisible. Brock was a Corvani explosives expert whose cybernetic implants allowed him to interface directly with Imperial weapon systems. Then there was Xerix, a voidwalker whose species existed partially outside normal spacetime, making him nearly impossible to track or target. "So you're the human everyone's talking about," Teshver said during their second day of travel. Her skin shifted colors as she spoke, cycling through blues and greens. "Word is you made some impossible shots during basic training." "I did my job," Marcus replied. "Modest," Brock rumbled, his mechanical voice box giving his words a metallic edge. "I like that. Most specialists love to talk about their capabilities." "What's the point?" Marcus asked. "Either you can do the job or you can't." Xerix materialized beside Marcus's seat, his translucent form flickering into visibility. Spoken like someone who has done jobs that can't be discussed. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. "Haven't we all?" The Nexus facility was unlike anything Marcus had seen in the Empire. Where other Imperial installations were clean and pristine, Nexus looked functional and worn. The corridors showed blast marks and plasma burns that had been repaired but not polished away. This was a place where serious work was done, Colonel Drathmek briefed. The new arrivals in a room that doubled as both classroom and armory. The Krell warrior stood nearly 10 feet tall, his exoskeleton bearing scars from battles fought across the galaxy. When he spoke, every other sound in the facility seemed to stop. "Welcome to Nexus," he began. "You are here because standard military training is insufficient for the missions you will undertake. The Empire faces threats that cannot be resolved through conventional means." He activated a holographic display showing star charts marked with red zones. Insurgent groups using stolen Imperial technology. Rogue artificial intelligences that have turned entire systems into war zones. Ancient weapons platforms left behind by extinct civilizations. Marcus studied the display with interest. Earth's conflicts had prepared him for many things, but this scope of warfare was new. "Your training here will last 6 months, Colonel Drathmek continued. "Those who complete it successfully will be assigned to tactical response teams. Those who do not," he paused meaningfully, "will be reassigned to duties more suited to their capabilities." The training began immediately. Unlike the structured exercises of basic training, Nexus threw them into complex scenarios with minimal briefing. The first exercise involved infiltrating a space station that had been taken over by rebel forces, Marcus found, himself paired with Teshver for the mission. Her camouflage abilities would get them inside. His job was to eliminate specific targets while avoiding civilian casualties. "The plan is simple," she explained as they approached the station in a stolen cargo shuttle. "I get us past security, you identify and eliminate the rebel leadership, we extract before reinforcements arrive." "How many civilians on board?" Marcus asked. "Approximately 3,000. Mostly miners and their families." Marcus checked his rifle's charge and adjusted the scope settings. "Rules of engagement? Minimize civilian casualties. Priority targets are marked in your tactical display." Her skin shifted to match the shuttle's interior coloring. "The rebels are using civilians as human shields. Expect complex shots." They docked at a maintenance port that Teshver's reconnaissance had identified as lightly guarded. Her camouflage allowed them to move through the station undetected. Reaching the central core where the rebel leaders had established their command center. Marcus set up his position in an abandoned restaurant overlooking the main plaza. Through his scope he could see the targets. The rebel leader, a Vexian warrior named Groxthal, stood on a raised platform addressing a crowd of civilians. His lieutenant and chief engineer flanked him, using the crowd as protection against attack. "I count 18 rebel soldiers mixed in with the civilians," Teshver reported through their comlink. "Target acquisition will be difficult." Marcus studied the scene through his scope. The rebels had positioned themselves expertly, using innocent families as cover. Any conventional attack would result in massive civilian casualties. I need you to create a distraction, Marcus told Teshver. Something to get the civilians moving. What kind of distraction? Emergency evacuation alarm. Make it look like a hull breach in Section C? Marcus watched as emergency lights began flashing throughout the plaza. Civilians began moving toward evacuation routes, creating gaps in the crowd around the platform. As people moved, Marcus identified his shooting lanes. His first shot took the chief engineer through the left eye as the alien turned to coordinate the evacuation response. The energy beam continued past the target and struck a support beam, causing sparks that added to the evacuation panic. The second shot hit the lieutenant as he reached for his weapon. The beam passed through his torso and disabled a communication console behind him. Cutting off the rebels' ability to coordinate their response, Groxthal dove for cover behind the platform. But Marcus had anticipated the movement. His third shot ricocheted off a metal surface, changing trajectory to strike the rebel leader as he thought he had reached safety. Total engagement time, 11 seconds. Civilian casualties, 0. Impossible, Teshver whispered over the comm. Those shots, the angles were completely blocked. Physics is just a suggestion, Marcus replied as he began packing his rifle. Time to go. The after-action review drew a... Agent Kill was nothing like Marcus had expected. The intelligence division officer appeared to be a middle-aged human woman, though Marcus knew appearances meant nothing in a galaxy where shape-shifting and genetic modification were commonplace. She sat across from him in an interrogation room that was trying very hard to look like a comfortable office. Please call me Sarah, she said with a warm smile. I know this process can feel invasive, but I'm here to help clarify a few things about your background. Marcus remained silent, studying her carefully. Everything about her body language suggested human origins, but her eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost mechanical in its precision. I've been reviewing your file, and I have to say, it makes for fascinating reading, Sarah continued. Born in San Francisco, educated in public schools, worked for your family's construction business. Very ordinary background for someone with such extraordinary capabilities. Is there a question in there? Marcus asked. Oh, many questions. For instance, Chun Demolition Services was incorporated in 2157, but financial records show no significant income until 2161. What happened in 2161 that suddenly made the business profitable? Marcus shrugged. We got better at finding work. Sarah's smile never wavered. Marcus, I'm going to share something with you that might change how we approach this conversation. I'm not actually Imperial intelligence. I'm Earth intelligence, embedded within the Imperial system. For the first time since entering the room, Marcus showed genuine surprise. That's right, Sarah continued. Earth's government has been placing assets within the Galactic Empire since first contact. We needed to understand what we were joining. And, more importantly, we needed to know if the Empire could be trusted with certain information about human capabilities. Marcus leaned back in his chair. And what have you concluded? That the Empire is remarkably naive about warfare. They've achieved peace through overwhelming technological superiority, not through any real understanding of conflict. When they encounter genuine military problems, they tend to throw massive amounts of resources at them until the problems go away. Expensive but effective, usually. But lately, they've been encountering problems that can't be solved with traditional approaches. Sarah activated a holographic display showing recent Imperial military actions. 3 rebel groups in the past year have used tactics that the Empire can't counter effectively. Small unit actions, precision strikes, psychological warfare. The kinds of things humans have been perfecting for centuries. Marcus studied the tactical data. They're losing. Badly, which brings me to why you're really here, Marcus Chun, or should I say Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Chun, formerly of the 75th Ranger Regiment's Direct Action Unit. The pretense was over. Marcus straightened in his chair, his posture shifting to full military bearing. That unit doesn't exist in any official records. No, it doesn't. Neither do the Shadow Wars of 21622171. Neither do the dimensional incursion events that your unit handled between 2168 and 2170. Amazing how many things don't exist in official records. Sarah waved her hand, and the holographic display changed to show Marcus's true service record. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Chun, confirmed kills, 47,392 individual targets. Successful operations, 1,847. Operational classification. Beyond black, specialties include multidimensional combat, exotic weapon systems, and tactical applications of advanced physics. Marcus looked at the numbers displayed above the table. They seemed smaller than he remembered. Those figures are incomplete. I know. We could only verify kills that left recoverable evidence. Your actual count is estimated at nearly twice that number. Sarah leaned forward. Marcus, the Empire needs soldiers like you. Not just competent snipers, they have plenty of those. They need soldiers who understand warfare at a level their species has never had to contemplate. What kind of operations are we talking about? The kind that require someone who has fought battles across 17 dimensions simultaneously. The kind that require tactical knowledge of exotic physics and weapon systems that officially don't exist. The kind that require a soldier who has personally ended conflicts that would have destroyed entire solar systems. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The Empire isn't ready for that level of warfare, which is exactly why they need you to teach them. But first, you need to complete your current training, and that means dealing with the final examination at Nexus. 2 days later, Marcus found himself aboard an Imperial stealth ship heading for the Kepler 2847 system. The mission briefing had been classified at levels that required biological authentication and memory-locked briefing implants. The target was a rebel. Stronghold on Kepler 2847c, a planet that had been corrupted by exposure to ancient alien technology. The rebels had used the alien artifacts to create weapons and defensive systems that Imperial forces couldn't penetrate. Marcus's team consisted of the same specialists he had trained with at Nexus, plus 2 additions, Commander Vexthal and Agent Sarah. The mission parameters were simple: eliminate the rebel leadership and destroy the alien weapons cache. Civilian casualties were to be avoided if possible, but the mission took priority. The rebels have established their base inside a structure that appears to exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. Colonel Drathmek explained via holographic briefing. Previous Imperial assault teams have suffered 100% casualties. Long-range bombardment has proven ineffective due to the structure's dimensional instability. Marcus studied the tactical data with growing interest. The alien structure showed characteristics he recognized from Earth's own encounters with extra-dimensional technology. How many rebel forces inside the structure? He asked. Unknown. Our sensors cannot penetrate the dimensional barriers. Estimates range from 200 to 2,000 combatants. What kind of weapons are they using? Again, unknown. Our scouts have reported energy signatures that don't match any known technology in the Imperial database. Marcus turned to Sarah. This is why you wanted me here. The Empire has been trying to solve this problem for 6 months, she confirmed. They've lost 4 assault teams and 2 Dreadnought-class ships. You're their last option before they resort to planetary bombardment. The approach to Kepler 2847c was unlike anything Marcus's teammates had experienced. As their ship entered the planet's atmosphere, space itself seemed to twist and fold around them. The rebel stronghold appeared as a massive crystalline structure that seemed to exist in several locations simultaneously. By the void, Xerix whispered as his form flickered uncertainly. The dimensional distortion is affecting my phasing abilities. Combat deployment in 30 seconds, Commander Vexthal announced. Remember, our objective is the alien weapons cache in the structure's core. Secondary objective is elimination of rebel leadership. Marcus checked his equipment one final time. Along with his standard Imperial rifle, he carried several devices that Sarah had provided. tools that officially didn't exist, but had proven effective in Earth's dimensional conflicts. The team deployed via drop pods, landing in a clearing approximately 1 kilometer from the rebel stronghold. Immediately, Marcus could sense the wrongness in the air. The dimensional distortions created a feeling like reality itself was unstable. "Approach Vector Alpha," Commander Vexel ordered. "Maintain formation and watch for—" The commander's words were cut off as the ground beneath them suddenly wasn't there. The team found themselves falling through what appeared to be empty space toward a completely different landscape. "Dimensional trap," Marcus called out, activating one of Sarah's devices. Reality snapped back into focus, and they were once again standing on solid ground. "The structure is defending itself by manipulating local space-time. How did you counter it?" Teshvar asked, her camouflage abilities useless against an enemy that could alter the nature of space itself. "Experience," Marcus replied, leading them toward an approach route that avoided the worst of the dimensional distortions. "The trick is to stop thinking of space and time as constants." As they moved closer to the stronghold, Marcus began to understand the true scope of what they were facing. The rebels hadn't just found alien technology, they had been changed by it. When the first enemy soldiers appeared, they moved in ways that human physics couldn't explain, phasing in and out of reality while firing weapons that seemed to shoot backwards through time. Contact left. Brock called out, his cybernetic system struggling to track targets that existed in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, Marcus raised his rifle and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. Each shot seemed to miss its target completely, passing through empty air. Then the 3 rebel soldiers collapsed, their dimensional phasing suddenly interrupted. "How?" Commander Vexel demanded. "I shot at where they were going to be, not where they are," Marcus explained, advancing toward the stronghold's main entrance. Dimensional combat is about predicting probability cascades, not tracking current positions. The battle that followed was unlike anything his teammates had ever experienced. Marcus moved through the twisted corridors of the alien structure like he belonged there, his shots finding targets that seemed impossible to hit. He led them past traps that would have destroyed a conventional assault force, his understanding of dimensional physics allowing him to navigate SAF